choice right now between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this incredibly cool episode, guys, we have Tony Rodrigues. He was a member of the Secret Space Program in the 20 and Back program that we're going to talk about here, and it is fascinating, guys. So of course, check the show notes for all the ways to find him. His website, his book Cirrus Colony Cavalier is located all kinds of down there, so go check it out for sure. While you guys are exploring that, check out our resource links down there in the show description as well. Also, there's the expandingrealitypodcast.com. That is our central hub for everything. My favorite part about it is no videos or content gets banned over there. It's all our stuff, so I'm not going to pull a guest's conversation down just because I think it'll piss some people off. No, it's all over there, so you guys go check it out. Also, if you'd like to support the show, one of the best ways to do so is to sign up to become an Expansive Insider, and that is where all the bonus stuff is located, and it's just an awesome value exchange to be able to enjoy and support the show here. Now, if you don't want to take advantage of all the bonus stuff and you still want to support, you're like, dude, the show is awesome, how can I help? Well, there's a link down in the show description that reads support the mission, and that is how you can do that. There's no cap, no ceiling, no firmament on that. You guys absolutely go nuts. And thank you all for anyone who's appreciated the value exchange model. That's what we do here. If you find this valuable, participate in that. And that's all we ever ask, of course, and to like and share and all that good stuff too. So guys, let's get to this incredibly cool conversation with Tony Rodrigues. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming to the show, we have Tony Rodrigues, the Secret Space Program experiencer. We haven't done a secret space yet. I am super pumped about this. I saw your Michael Salla interview on your website. Just super pumped about that combination anyway. But dude, you're fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So I'm super pumped to get into this. So for my audience that doesn't know you as well as I do right now, just tell us a little bit about you, brother.
Wow. So, my name's Tony Rodrigues, and I have a website. I've been doing this for, since 2016. It was like 2015. I had a memory recall, like a breakthrough moment, where I remembered being abducted and being used in black programs, sold from program to program, and actually sold into the Secret Space Program infrastructure, where I served in a few different programs. And when I would outlive my use, they would retrain me, assess me, retrain me, and sell me to another one. And I ended up living on something called the Ceres Colony Corporation. It's a planetoid in between Mars and the asteroid belt, Ceres, Ceres. And, they put me back and I forgot everything. They deleted my memories or blanked them or whatever term you want to say. And, I was 10 years old when they took me and they put me back. It's, called the Career Return Program, or a 20 and Back program. And I was changed. I had emotional problems. I had problems, and I had no idea what was going on with me my whole life. And then in 2015, I got an MRI, and I learned like a week later, 2 weeks later after an MRI, that about the program, that they could take you and keep you and put you back. And so I always thought I was taken many times. I had vague memories of the original intake when I was taken, and I had other vague snippets, little fragmented memories of time and space, and it didn't make any sense to me, so I brushed it off. But once I learned that and the memories all came back in 2015, I thought, this is something more than a vivid imagination. It's something more than some kind. I'm a very functional person. I don't have any kind of like schizophrenia or any kind of weird tendencies where I need to be medicated, or I don't need counseling. And so I knew something was very profound that I was remembering. And what happened was I began to research the things I remembered. So if you can imagine, never going to a town like there's a small town called McBain, Michigan nearby. I'm sure you've never heard of it.
Never.
So you have no idea what it looks like. the population, the economy, the weather, the smells, the roads. You don't know your way around McBain, right? So imagine one day you woke up and you remembered living in McBain for a couple of years, and you had the smell, the memory, you knew the layout of the town. You went, whoa, does this town even exist? And you went on Google Earth and you went, oh my God, there it is. And it's exactly how you remember it. That's what happened to me. That's exactly what happened to me. I lived in Peru during this time in a town. It's there. I've checked with people. I've checked with things that I remember being built in 83. And it checked out. And then I lived in Seattle. There's a time I went back to that house. I knew the area like the back of my hand. I've never been there. I can prove I've never been there, but I knew everywhere. And I documented that with researchers. I knew places in California. And finally on the planetoid series, I called out things, geological features before NASA did. And it took NASA a while to confirm the chemical makeup the way that I did. And it all checked out, man. It's crazy. So it checked out. So I did an interview, and one led to another, and then it started eating up a lot of my time. You know, like we're talking every Saturday for sure for the last 6 years. You know what I mean? Like I'm dealing with people, not only doing interviews or, online stuff, but like people contacting me saying, look, I think I went through the same thing. I saw your interview, Tony. I think I went through the same thing, and I'd like to talk to you about it. And I get a lot of those. And then I finally wrote the book. It took me 6 years to write. It was very painful and very difficult to write the book, but I got that out. It was a bestseller. It was a bestseller last week. Last week it broke it again, but it spent 6 weeks at #1 when it first was released in January. And it's got a lot, 500 some reviews. People like the book, but it's difficult. It's not a Star Trek episode. It's not a vanilla Star Trek episode. It's it's harrowing. A lot of people have a hard time reading the book. I've heard people that, cried reading it or angry and they get angry. It's like the book, it stokes a lot of emotion because it's written as a true account. It's my account, what I remember. And after that was out there, it's out there. So I'm working on the second book, and I'm continue to do these talks, and I deal with people. So it is what it is. I call it the best I can. And unfortunately, the more things that I check out, keep checking out. So I always wait for that silver bullet that's going to be some other explanation. Like, no, Tony, that didn't happen. It's just, this is a weird, like you ate some kind of flour thing that was in your pizza.
Yeah,
you get a gourmet pizza, and some people get this side effect, but that's not been the case. In fact, every time I find another thing that I can check out and somebody else goes and check, like it pans out, like little things keep panning out. Sorry, I'm on a roll here.
No, brother, you're killing it already, straight out the gate. I knew this was going to be awesome. But yes, your book, Cirrus Colony Cavalier, and your website and all the ways to find you, of course, are going to be linked down in the show notes. On your website as well, what you were talking about somebody approaching you and saying, hey, I think I had an experience. You have a recall course that you offer for folks, and you take them through kind of, hey, do you think that you were 20 and back, which is amazing. Like, again, the whole concept of this is mind-blowing. So I'd kind of like to start, and also, yeah, I'd add to this what you touched on about your story. It is dark, man. Your MK Ultra style, like, intro into this program, how you even got it started, and we'll get there. But I mean, the whole thing is just, it's sick and disgusting. Like, you think, it's going to be awesome, but you were a slave. I mean, the people like Corey Good and stuff, they make it sound like you're out there with flamethrowers and like you're, the Arnold Schwarzeneggers of space, like rolling around just kicking ass all the time. And it's not like that, which kind of sucks, to be honest with you. It's like, if you want to have a secret space program, make it dope as shit. Make it flamethrowers in space. Make it what we want. I don't care how it happens. I just want you to tell me about it. So, and I do want to touch on some of the cooler elements of this too, just for funsies. But so, if you don't mind, brother, take us to 1981. What happened?
Well, actually, it was 82. So in the beginning, it was the school year of 81 to 82.
Gotcha.
So in the beginning, like when I did the Sala interview, like that, a lot of that hadn't been sorted out, and I continued to remember things. And so I want to say this about the memory course, because I don't know really. I mean, I'm new to your show, and you said this is a space program, like a first. I don't know. So I don't know where the viewer or listener is, where the audience is. And, so a lot of people hear this information. If they hear it for the first time, the people who listen to these shows are like any kind of fringe kind of show is because they know something's wrong, or, you know what I mean? They know that it's possible in the first place. People are searching because they saw something that they weren't supposed to see at some point in their life. So that's what I found is most of the audience.
Yeah, you're in good hands here. You are in very good company. People want you to go for it. You're with family.
I'm cool. Well, you know what I mean? Like if you were listening to if you read my book and you listened to my stuff and you weren't a little skeptical, it would be weird. It'd be weird if you weren't skeptical. So I'm cool with that. But, you know,
here, then let's do this straight out the gate. Because yes, this is the first time that we've met. We got hooked up through Ghost, a great friend of ours, mutually. So shout out Ghost. One of the things on this show that we do here and that I do and embody is I'm not out to prove anybody wrong or me right. Because number one, I have no idea what's going on here. I'm all about the possibilities. Another thing too, this quantum physics and the look, what we've been researching with that and the ethereal and things like that. It's looking like we're not even in the same reality. So to me, consensus reality is kind of up for grabs here. And my audience is very attuned to a very open-minded way of looking at stuff. So you are 0% judged, open arm embraced, and I can't fucking wait for this, dude. So yes, please feel comfortable.
Like I said, so even if there was the case, at this point, I have a lot that I can defend myself in a room of skeptics. Like I did a talk in Silicon Valley in front of a bunch of scientists and business people, and I had to defend myself, and I feel I can do that. But I want to touch on this, like in the beginning, remembering this of something like industrial grade amnesia. That if you think about that, like that's what I had. They gave me amnesia with space age, like technology from 1,000 years in the future. Like, so to overcome that is rare for one, but there are literally thousands of people that remember serving in a program like mine. What people are concluding nowadays, they start to get these fragmented memories and they get 2 or 3 kind of outside points of data that, like a brother or sister be like, I remember seeing the craft too. And so they're like, whoa, there's more to this. I'm not dreaming this up. But they don't have I have a big recall. Like I'll admit it. I have like 70, 80% of 20 years worth of what happened that was blanked that I remember now. So it's rare. I'm a rarity. I thought I wouldn't be, but I am.
Now, they have to know that this is a possibility, that people will snap out of this, that regression exists, that you can have a really strong psychedelic experience and probably recall some of this stuff. So they have to know that this is inevitable. Do you think that they just count on that people won't believe you and that it's so out there that it doesn't matter?
Right. So they just admitted that there's UAPs and nobody blinked an eye.
Yeah.
We've been so heavily programmed that we're unaware of it. People are so heavily programmed. I say it all the time. When people are skeptical and they're like, what, Tony, blah, 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 for whatever reason, I say, look, if a gray ET appeared next to me at this very moment, walked up and said telepathically hello to you and the audience, and you heard it in your mind, and then he disappeared, 5 minutes later, you'd think that was a cool trick.
You wouldn't even believe it. In a second, we'd be number one podcast, number one. We would be all about it. I would not stop talking about it.
Well, no, people wouldn't believe it. What I'm saying is it wouldn't have the, if I walked, I did a talk in Vegas and walked down Fremont Street. And I said, if a gray alien walked down this street, everybody would think what a great trick that was. They would not believe it. It would not find its way to the news. And if it did, if the news was like, look, there was a gray alien, people would blink and they'd carry on about their way. We've been programmed to turn away from it. Yeah, it's just real. And
the Project Bluebeam stuff with the 7D technology, and we've researched that quite a bit. And so if they're capable of doing these things, and there was a video I played from 2005 of this crazy 7D hologram, and that was in Japan, of course, and it was badass. But if they can do that, I'd be very skeptical. If you can bring Tupac back and just have him dance around on stage for a little bit and then say a gray alien's walking around,
or
I'd be skeptical. In a suit. But
you know what I mean?
Cool. Like,
even the telebit, like I said, like people are conditioned to just not believe it. We've been programmed to it over time. But so to get on to a different point, when I got my memories back, I had a hard time, you know what I mean, putting it all together. It was just a lot. And I started doing interviews, and people would ask me, so what happens is you remember you remember the big moments, the oh shit moments.
Yeah.
So those are the first memories that came back. The times I got in a fight, the first time I saw stars while I was in space, the first time I saw another planet, falling in love. Do you get what I'm saying? Like these are the things I remembered first. Those are the clear memories. I don't really remember, you don't remember the mundane, you don't remember plunging the toilet kind of stuff.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? For lack of a better term. And what happened was I started doing interviews and people were like, well, what was the bathroom like? What did you brush your teeth? How did you get your hair cut? Did you have a facial hair? And at first I couldn't remember that. And I went, if this is real, and then I told myself, you know what I mean? Because I am my worst skeptic. I remind myself of this because I'm speaking about it publicly to great detriment to my own personal reputation and my children, my family's reputation. You know, my kids put up with it at school. Like, I saw your dad, you know what I mean, talking about he knows aliens on YouTube. And my kids put up with this is real, man. So I wouldn't do that if I wasn't absolutely sure, if I didn't have proof to myself. So when people ask me these questions and I really couldn't call up the memory, I thought, I know we had to brush my teeth.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
and so,
yeah. Like, I would ask, you said fall in love. So the question I was asking is, do you have space kids running around out there? Like, did you breed in space? Like, while you're on the moon and shit?
I wish.
You know what I mean? That's what I want to know. What's banging in zero gravity like? Like, I want to know that shit.
I had a girlfriend. We had sex in lesser gravity.
Okay,
zero gravity.
How did that work with inertia and all that stuff? Do you have to kind of bounce off the walls?
Lesser gravity was better. They say that zero gravity was a no-go. So nobody wanted. Yeah, they said don't do it. So
don't do it. Okay. You heard it here.
So that's a story. That's a different story. I think it's in the book too. I think that whole scene is in the book.
Awesome. Linked in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll give you all that stuff. But so what happened was I thought, man, I should be able to remember this. If these are real, I should be able to remember when I got a haircut. I should be able to remember these things. If I'm going to go on stage, if I'm going to go in front of camera, in front of 100,000 people and talk about this, I should be able to remember brushing my teeth. And so I kind of figured out exercises about it. I figured out an exercise. And what happened was I did remember. I went, oh, we had those junky disposable toothbrushes, and they were in a plastic wrapper, and then we throw them away every morning. And we had, and then when our hair got long, we got inspected going in and out of the barracks, and they'd say, go over there, it's time to get a haircut. And I started to remember these things. I figured out a method, like an exercise. Your brain's a muscle. Your long-term memory is a muscle. We don't use it. You use your short-term memory all the time, literally, every time you're awake. Your long-term memory, you very rarely use it. It's a weaker muscle. And so I figured out kind of an exercise for it in the mornings, and I have a thing. And so that's what I did. I've never had regression. I've never had a hypnoregression. And a lot of people go to that. And hypnoregression is a lot like a tattoo. You can get a beautiful tattoo, or you can get a jailhouse quality tattoo, and you can get a great regression, or you can get devastated by a bad regression. And so that's what I tell people, like, whoa, don't just, people contact me and I'm like, how much do you remember? Like, I don't know, a little bit. I'm like, do not get a regression yet. Let's work with what we got, and let's make the most of what we got, and then let's get a baseline and then go to the regression. Like, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying get the best one you can, like you would a tattoo. Get a famous artist.
Yeah. A couple things to what you're talking about here. So the things that they're asking you to remember is super mundane shit. Like, I couldn't tell you what I had for 3 fast foods ago. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's like this 90% action, the subconscious stuff, like this driving around and shit. That's why I want to know what banging in space is like. I don't give a shit if you can remember if you brush your teeth or not. Like, it's silly to me that's a point of like, gotcha. For some folks. Yeah. I just think some folks are like that. And we'll go deeper into that the world is actually just a mirror to you, and maybe we can talk about how I can help you rewrite any interaction that you have coming at you just by thinking about it differently. We'll talk off air. But another thing is like, whenever you talk about like people focusing on that kind of shit, it doesn't matter. It's mundane. The adventurous stuff, the high adrenaline things, the things that really made a difference, like you said, the emotive memories are the ones that you've got. Those are the ones that you made connections to. So that little mundane nitpicky shit, I think it gets away from like talking about banging in space, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like people gotta relax.
I like how you come back to that. Well, and you know what, to be fair, I'm talking about researchers.
Yeah.
So another thing is there's a lot of people talking about being in the space programs, and I hate the word super soldier, but people that are super soldiers that have no memory of it. Somebody told them they were on a tarot card reading or whatever it is. And they're talking about it, and they've never been vetted. No researcher, no legitimate researcher has cross-examined them. And the reason they ask for those nitpicky things is so I go, yeah, it was a disposable toothbrush in a public shower. So that if somebody else comes to that researcher and says, I was taken, and they go, do you remember anything mundane? Like, what was the toothbrush like? And they go, it was a disposable toothbrush. Then that's a vetting point. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's super important for a researcher to have these details, to know those things. And it's also super important for people to be able to recite them, for somebody to come up and say, like they had a timer that made us artificially go to sleep. So every night at the same time, a box in our room made us go to sleep. We slept exactly at the same time every night. And so it's important to know stuff like that, because if you want to be taken seriously, there's so many people coming forward. And frankly, there are CIA assets. There are disinfo agents coming forward now that are kind of some big names in the community, but there are people coming forward to fake it, to dilute the information, because they are still, there's still a very ramped up effort to make us look stupid so that people don't believe it, because they want to keep it a secret. And the reason they keep it a secret is because of the slavery, because of the human rights, and because of the radical profits and the advancements that they're getting for a select few people versus the rest of us. Like, we're talking about not just getting from A to B quickly. We're talking about doubling your lifespan kind of technology. So
this is the shit. Let's get into it. So tell us about the technology, because some people out there may not have even heard what 20 and back is. So what's going on with this, man? Let's set up what the technology is and then talk us through 82.
Sure. So in 1980, it's my understanding that I've heard from researchers is that the MJ-12 group went global long prior to this. The MJ-12 group in the National Security Act of 1947 was actually contact with ETs. And long before that, a group, not the Germans, not the Nazis, but a security group like their version of the CIA and parts of the University of Munich, if I got that right, discovered anti-grav and went into space. And what they found, lo and behold, was that not only is there life out there, intelligent life, but it's everywhere. And on the backside of the moon, that there are several species that are inhabiting inside the moon, and there's treaties, and it's a very contested place. And there are large groups or organizations made up of hundreds of, not thousands of worlds that work together, and they each have their little pots. They have real estate in our solar system. And so they went up there and made treaties with the only ones that would have them, who are very aggressive and very inhumane reptilians, basically the Orion group. And it's made up of literally thousands of different species, but it's headed up by the reptilians that are more advanced. And they're in our local area.
This is fascinating, because this is the thing, right? Whenever people talk about, Zeta Reticuli and Draco constellation and all that stuff, it's way over there. You know, what technology? Number one, it's probably not hard for them, right? Number two, they're probably not that far away. I love that you brought this up, that there's just kind of like a food court of different alien beings on the backside of the moon that all have like a little pod, like that movie Valerian, right? Have you ever seen that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh yeah. With all the little space, and then everybody's in it. That's so cool, because then, they're local. Yeah, they're draconian. You get abducted by reptilians, but maybe they just take your ass to the moon, right next door to the Pleiadians, and then you got the Greys right over there. And maybe they borrow a couple and team up, grab a couple of Greys and send them out like automatons, right? Maybe this is what the crossover is. So it might not be that far away. I love the point. I just wanted to point it out.
That's exactly right. And then further on into the solar system around Jupiter, there's a great deal of infrastructure and many different species living there, both on the moons, on the larger Jovian moons, and in bases that are in, space stations that are around Jupiter. Because Jupiter, being a failed star, has a lot of natural areas that are kind of tears in time space. So there are rips, there are temporal bubbles around Jupiter, and there are wormhole entrances around Jupiter that are basically used to travel to other galaxies. So space is not that far away. So this is something that's big, we've been totally programmed. When you watch Star Wars, it takes them a long time to get from one world to another. Actually, not that bad. Star Wars isn't that bad, but like Star Trek, they have to warp for a very long time to go to the other side of the galaxy. It's just so big. And all of the sci-fi, they got rockets, and it takes forever to get, even though they can go to other worlds, it still takes forever. And that's not the case. In fact, we went to other worlds, we went to other galaxies, and we were back at the same day for dinner. We never slept on the ship. We didn't have to sleep on our spaceships. We jumped instantly to other systems, and in fact, to other using the natural wormhole around Jupiter, we could access about 18 other galaxies and find wormholes in each galaxy, and then go to other 18 more. So that's how space travel really is. And when you think about that, the amount of worlds that we could trade with and conduct business with was not in the hundreds. It was not in the thousands. It was in the billions of sentient species, different species that we never even heard of, that belong to other groups like the Orion group that are very far away, that may have heard of us or may not. And our ship's mission that I worked on the last few years I was up there as a cargo engineer, I was in maintenance. I was in ship maintenance on an older, antiquated ship for like 8 years, and I didn't know what was going on. I mean, really, you couldn't feel the thing moving from, when it started or left, you couldn't feel it. And we were just locked downstairs and did maintenance. So I had no idea what was going on for most of the time. The last few years, I got promoted to cargo engineer. I sat in on mission briefings, and I was able to look out the window. I was able to go get lunch. I got a small paycheck, and I was able to go around the Ceres colony. I could buy a train ticket and go to the restaurant and stuff. So I had a measure of freedom, even though I was still a slave. But during that time, we went to many different. Sometimes we went to 4 or 5 different star systems a day, different planets, and traded. And our mission was not to explore or boldly go. Our mission was to acquire technology by any means necessary, to trade goods for tech, to trade tech for tech, or to just steal it. And it was told they were after higher technology more than anything. And all the colonies, so there are like a couple hundred or so colonies in our solar system from Earth. And now they're blended with other ETs, like they move out into a body on their, Mars Colony Corp, for instance, Ceres Colony Corp. There's the stations around Saturn, around Jupiter, out in the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt. There are colonies of people that went and just built a can or whatever it is, burrowed into a mountain in space, a rock the size of a mountain, and made a base. And so they're a colony there. And so there are hundreds of those in our solar system, and they are all competing to be the most technologically advanced. Like, that's the name of the game.
Damn. I mean, dude, because now I'm sitting here thinking, great, it's a bunch of assholes running around just being bullies in the galaxy here, representing Earthlings. No wonder the reptilians are such assholes to us, I mean, and also it sounds weird that they would recruit people from Earth if they have like this huge infrastructure, which is what it sounds like. I mean, if you're multiplying forces and this has been going on for a very long time, then it seems like that, and with the speed of technology, with how they can quickly reproduce things, with cloning technology, which they probably utilize, right? So you'd think they would just grow people instead of risking taking people from Earth. Is there an issue with the clones versus humans? Right.
So there. You just tapped on something very profound, and you were just talking about earlier. What did you say about quantum reality? That reality isn't what we think it is.
Yeah, consensus reality. It's probably not
consensus reality. It's nothing like what we think it is. In fact, what do you think? What do you think the value is of one person?
Yeah,
in the grand scheme of the universe, what is the value of one person? Because it might sound like it's not much, and right now I can grab any teenager from anywhere in America, and they're pretty depressed. They're just like, you know what I mean? Like, very few of them are very happy and motivated. There's a lot of depression, and even in their young 20s, the kids really don't. If they really knew what they really were, that their consciousness was the most valuable thing ever, that they were the most capable thing ever, and that they could manipulate reality to do whatever, literally achieve and do whatever they wanted and connect with their higher self. If they knew how powerful they really were, their life would change. But you know what I mean? Like, they program that against us. Look at put on TV, put on any kind of media, and you're going to see violence and gore, and it's going to make you feel shut down. It's going to put your subconscious into like a panic mode. But the reality is that, like you said, with clothing, the labor force up there, people are amazing, and the Earth is more of a depot than anything. Other ETs like us to come and be a labor force. And I hear it all the time in Silicon Valley. I hear, Tony, we know you're lying, because they would just build robots. And I said, it wasn't so. They didn't say, they weren't hawkish like that. They posed the question, like, why not robots? Why you guys? And my answer is easy. It's because last year you used about the electrical, your body, everything you did for the whole year, the amount of energy in electricity that you expended could power a 500-watt light bulb for less than 24 hours.
Damn.
So what a light bulb burns in 24 hours is what you did, was what you burnt all of last year. And I like to think you got a lot done.
Oh yeah,
we are by far the most talented, most capable, and most energy efficient robot that ever could live. We are programmable. What's missing from that is that we are completely programmable. Mind control is real. We are programmed. You're programmed to laugh at this when I say that I was on a UFO, that I worked on a UFO for 12 years. Your very first instinct, even if you believe it, you still have a tinge of I don't know.
I think you totally,
because you've been programmed.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you get what I'm saying, though. We are programmed and we are awesome. People are awesome. And we're not at the top of where the other lie is that we're at the top of the food. We're at the top of the food chain. We're the best. That's it. We're the smartest. And that's it. All the animals in nature, they stop here. And man, we don't really aspire to be better than what we are. In fact, we piss it away. We totally piss away what we are because that's it. We don't have anything to look forward to. Here's what we have to look forward to. You need to get a couple $1 billion so that you can have expensive everything. That's really the carrot that dangles in front of us. It's not that your spirit is going to go on and you're going to reincarnate possibly as something better, as a humanoid that lives for thousands of years, or as something even more beautiful than that, that has a psychic ability, or something even more beautiful than that, that has the ability to travel without a ship, that can teleport places by mentally, or be able to mentally manipulate matter and turn things into other things. Like you can turn an apple into a TV remote control with your mind. We don't know about that, so we don't even think about like that. But that's the reality. The real reality of the universe is that our consciousness that we're made out of, that we've incarnated with, that chose to be here, our higher self, that consciousness is basically connected to the very fabric of all of the universe. And we have dominion. Once we reconcile and get rid of all the fear and all the other programming, we have complete control over it. And that's kind of like the deal. So the ETs know this, and they can take people, so they can clone people, but it's kind of a vegetable. So they're using our consciousness. What I believe what happened to me was that I was taken, and I was 10 years old, and they put me on a table in a laboratory and they cloned me. But the clone was an idiot. So they took my consciousness out and put it into that clone. And then it lived for the 20 years. And they have time travel. So people don't want to believe it. But to travel great distances in space, you can travel time as well. So space-time is the same exact thing. So the wormhole technology also allows time travel. So they take that clone that goes 20 years, they cap it at 20 years. I was told because it was likely that it could have mental problems afterwards when they put you back. They cap it at 20 years, they put it back 20 years, and they killed the thing. And the consciousness just by default returns to its original host. And I woke up on the table and what happened? And they put me back. How many contact stories are like, man, we saw the craft, there was some lights, the car shut off, and I don't know what happened after that. I felt weird. We both felt kind of weird afterwards. I still don't know what happened. Like, that's the typical story, because they're taking people for longer than 5 minutes. They have time travel, doing all these things, and they can put you right back in the same body at the same age and put you right back after they had you for 10, 15, 20 years and did whatever they wanted. So you get what I'm saying? Like, this technology is radical, and it would change our life if we had public access to it. What would you pay? What would you do to live an extra 20 years? And be put back into your body, and then all of a sudden, imagine if you were 20 years old and you got to live till you were 40 and then get put back to 20.
Well, but this
awesome.
It would be, but here's the deal. Like, I like the way this is. I kind of have an opinion, or just an idea here, that what's going on is perfect, like in organization, in design, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just to facilitate the expansion of consciousness in all of its weird ways that it does that. And so in my mind, if I'm sitting here thinking that this is going to be altered in a way, then I would like for it to be more of a natural one. I think that would be pretty cool, or some sort of space tech that's more organic. I'd go for that. But what's interesting to me about this is, even with, okay, so let's say, just for the audience's sake here, 20 and Back secret space program basically is, hang on. Okay. Allergies out here in Texas this day. Okay, so basically it is to where you get abducted. They basically take your body, and there's different mechanisms in which this works, and I'd like to go over the one that you experienced, which sounds like you did, so we'll just go back there. And basically they have you jacked, and you go in a spaceship, and you go do these awesome, super cool missions with flamethrowers and shit. Not in poor Tony's case here, but most people do. And then they age regress you back 20 years and then put you back in your body 15 minutes around the window in which you were abducted originally from the original timeline. Now, a couple things to this. In my mind, if they're fucking with time travel, this is a timeline split thing now. Now you're talking about alternate timelines, and if this has happened pretty frequently and recklessly, which is what probably the governments of the world would be doing with this shit, then it's probably got some inverse effects, right? The other thing would be that if you did go and you could, now it's brilliant what you said about, okay, so it's you and then your clone, 10-year-old you and dopey clone. I think of that movie Multiplicity. Have you ever seen that? You know,
No,
where
no, I don't think so. I haven't.
Batman, Michael Keaton. Okay, it's silly. It's a fun movie. Don't expect to get wisdom from it. But basically, spoiler alert: he clones himself, and as it goes, there's entropy, right? Cognitive entropy, and so they get dumber and dumber and dumber. And the last one's like licking pizza and wearing goggles and shit. And so that's what I pictured when you said your clone was a doi doi. And so you have this doi doi clone, and then your consciousness goes into that. That is the vehicle in which takes your consciousness now, the avatar, and then goes off and does its mission and then comes back. What happens to your body while your consciousness is over here in the clone?
So it's just sitting there for a matter of 15 to 30 minutes. It's only been 30 minutes. So the reason that I was led to believe cloning was what happened to me was because of the experience of it. So the way that I experienced it. So I don't, it's like going in for surgery. I say it all the time. I say, if you go in for surgery on your spleen, that doesn't mean you know how to perform surgery on a spleen. You have no idea what the hell just happened to you.
Yeah.
You just wake up, you're sore and your spleen is fixed. So it was kind of like that. That's, I experienced it, but I have no idea really what they did.
I think it's a cool idea. I like it.
Yeah.
Like conceptually, I like it.
So what happened was I was taken. I woke up. I was taken out of my room in 1982 in April of, it had to be around April of 82. I lived in Michigan. I was taken to southern Michigan, and I was all with by gray ETs and reptilians. It's like short, 4 foot tall, 3.5, 4 foot tall reptilians. They carried me out of my bed. I was a flash of light, and I woke up after being dazed and confused, after I'd been unconscious for a while, naked on a table in a surgical setting. And they were waiting on genetic tests to see if I was compatible with their program. So that's the other thing, is not everybody goes because the genetics matter. So however it is that if there's an out of phase, like a dimensional thing or the time travel or the portal tech, something relies on a genetic marker. Not everybody can do it. So it can be very detrimental to people that don't have the genetics for it. They said that I had the genes to go once, that I barely had the genes. We had to wait. They took like a sample, like out of my back of my head, like a brain tissue sample, and sent that off for the genetic testing. When the test came back and I was able to go, they said, we want to borrow your consciousness. This is what they said. This was a short reptilian, spoke to me telepathically. He had a sense of humor. I could understand him as if it was English. He was the equivalent of 25 years or so in his own age, in his whatever world he was from. He explained it to me that he had a wife and kid. He went home to his planet every day after working there in that base. And he said, we need your consent because we want to borrow your consciousness to help us out and do some work.
Yep.
And I said, what? So what do you mean? For how long? He said 20 years. And I said, no, I can't do that. My mom and dad, I'm going to miss out on my sister. My sister will grow up. I won't even know her. My mom and dad will miss me. I can't do that. He said, no. Listen, we have time travel. We're going to put you back exactly the same. This is a blessing to you. He's like, you are lucky to be chosen for this. You're special. You're special. And he said all this, like you're going to go back tomorrow morning and you'll be able to tell you may be able to tell your mom and dad what you did. And you're going to live, you're going to be smarter. You're going to have 20 years more of experience on top of your life that would have already been short. This is a blessing for you.
Yeah.
So, and he's like, trust me, you won't miss out on your mom and dad. You're going to wake up there tomorrow morning. We have time travel. And I thought it was first contact. I thought, man, the next day on the news, we're going to have ETs. We're going to have spaceships and ETs, just like, Battlestar Galactica. I thought this was it. The world was going to change. And I was happy. I was excited. I thought it was first contact. So I said, yes. Immediately, they put me back on the table. They strapped me down and did a surgery. There was a needle that went into my tested to see which one was my dominant eye. There was an eyeball test, and they got my dominant eye, and they put a needle syringe like in the tear duct. Bam! And I felt like I saw stars, like getting punched. If you ever, the guys know what I'm talking about. Hopefully, the girls listening don't know what I'm talking about.
We get your bell rung. Yeah.
God bless. But if you get hit really hard, you see stars, and it was like that. It was that experience. It was like I got punched. I woke up in Southern California in Inyokern for the MK Ultra type trauma-based mind control program. I barely could remember English. I had no memory of my mom or dad or what had just happened. I had complete amnesia, as if I were a blank clone. Like they took me out and put me into a clone. I woke up and I had no memories. I had no and for the next 20 years, I had no memories prior to that point. I did not remember my mom or dad. or my sister that I lived with, or my home that I came from. I would, there was a time when they gave me paper and crayons, and I would always draw the house, the farmhouse. It was with the long driveway where I grew up. But at the end of the 20 years, I had memories of the 20 years. I always wanted to go back to Peru. At the end, when they put me back, they put me through it was a weeks-long process, other programming. And there was a process that they did, and they put me in a machine, and it felt like I got incinerated. It felt like I got put in a crematory. There was pain. I remember the pain, and my body was being vaporized basically. And I woke up back in my 10-year-old body on the moon, in a base on the backside of the moon with a bunch of ETs on a table again. And I had no memory of the 20 years of on series, but I had the memories of my mom and dad and my sister back again. I went back to having all those memories. Do you get what I'm saying? It was like being taken out into a different body, lived 20 years. And then at the end, it was like they put me back and I had the original memory back.
Yes.
So that's what led me to theorize that cloning was what they did. So that's the only reason.
So much here, dude. Awesome, by the way. Absolutely awesome. Okay. So whenever you're describing this, what I'm thinking is kind of the Avatar model, right? Let's say that, the movie Avatar, whatever, they change their consciousness into a bigger vehicle or avatar. Now, this ties into what the reports of like the Greys telling a couple of people when interviewed, asked or whatever, they've been reported as calling us vessels. And so maybe everything's a damn vessel, man. Maybe all of this is just like vehicles that you can just hop in, take the wheel over and drive, with this absence of consciousness. So another thing, the NPC conversation we could probably put to the side, but I think that it ties in here if you go into the simulation theory and like personnel and all that kind of stuff. But what's interesting about this is if you think about that cloning is this way. Now, it seems more of a simulation idea whenever we're talking about this because basically the memory only exists within that avatar. It doesn't follow its host back to its host, right? It's just the essence of you and math and shit, and that's what they put in there. And so it stays with the avatar. And you could be anything, you know what I mean? They could have put you in a Grey's body, right? They could have put you in a reptilian's body.
So at some point it did, because I do remember it. So do you know what I'm saying? Like I did collect. So I'm in me, the original me now. And in 2015, I did get all the memory. I had a breakthrough moment. I had an MRI scan. So it's important that's a common denominator between a lot of people that got memories back. And then 2 weeks later, I found out about the 20 and back tech, and I went, oh my God, that's what happened. I had all these bleed through memories, Yeah. And so at some point I did have access, even though, like there's a backup. Like there's a local set of like a hard drive in your body that remembers your brain. And then somewhere else, in the ether, your soul, wherever that is, somewhere else, there's another copy of all your memories. And at a certain point, I got access to those.
See, this is awesome.
So my head's going to explode. Trying to explain, you know what I mean? Like trying to.
Because it's so much, man. But I know some great hypnotherapists, by the way, top-notch people that I highly recommend, if not pressure, just if you're curious. Another thing, that would be interesting is to hook you up with somebody I just recently had on, a good friend of mine, Rachel Horton White. She reads Akashic readings. And so this is maybe like the cloud. This is where your DNA is. And if your DNA did something, it's in there. So it's like a non-falsifiable sort of an etheric cloud, right? Like we're talking about where those memories are stored. So of course you would have access to it. It's just interesting that if they built that into the model, right, that it stayed with the clone. I'm sure they're working on it. It just makes me feel that the tech is a little clunky. That's all.
So there were some other things like I wasn't the norm. I wasn't somebody that in this program, this technique, I wasn't the normal person. People are groomed for these programs. People are genetically kind of, groomed, for lack of a better word. Like these programs know who, like their generation, because that's the other thing is people always ask, why did they even bother to put you back? Why did they bother?
It's a great question. Right? I mean, it's the question, right?
Right. So here's a couple of things. So number one, there's the theory that, you are a consciousness that chooses to incarnate for your own growth into different lives. Yes. And if the world was getting pilfered by millions of people being taken and killed, you would choose to not incarnate here. So they keep the system going. Like it's a parasitic technology. They're parasiting on consciousness. Okay. For one, for two, you don't cut down the apple tree. You don't pick an apple and chop the tree down. You put them back and you'll wait for more apples to come because now you know that their children are compatible to your technology if it's based on genetics. And in fact, you can manipulate them to have kids with other people that you know are compatible with your program as well. So there's a great deal. There may be a great deal. We think it's free will and all this stuff. There's a great deal of manipulation on all of us. Let's face it. Kids nowadays, like there was a time a few years ago when they talked all the kids, the little girls, into cutting themselves with their app, with their what is that called? The iPod. They were watching apps and videos, and all these girls. I had daughters. They were cutting themselves. Like, what are you doing? We never did that. I was depressed. My generation, you know what I'm saying? We grew up in the 70s and 80s. We were depressed as shit. We didn't even have the internet, but we never cut ourselves. Nobody was into that. And all of a sudden they did this. They were testing the response on the influence. They can literally influence people to do things like mutilate themselves. And that's what's going on. So if you think that they can't convince you to fall in love with somebody that you don't really like that much because you're a genetic match on their documents, then think again, because this is something totally in their wheelhouse. And they're, you know what I mean? They can spawn kids that are perfectly compatible. And I've heard of people, I've worked with people, so people get a hold of me all the time. Thousands of people will come forward and said they have similar memories. Some of them have great recall, but most people don't want to talk about it. They have a profession, they have a family. There's a great cost to speaking publicly about it. And a lot of them feel like they've been, prenatally manipulated, like their mom can remember while she was pregnant being taken. And there's always, I don't want to say always, but a high percentage of them have military. Uncle was in the Air Force, yep. Dad was in the CIA, yep. Grandpa was in the Navy. It's always Navy, CIA, really, most of the time. And so these are people that are on the radar of this. If you have access to this program, you start with the people that are standing right next to you. And let's check your DNA and see if you can do it. Okay, how about your kid? Let's take your kid. They won't even know what happened. So we'll just take them and put them back. And so that was and also this is the single most important thing. And I don't want to call it pride. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm proud of it, but I don't want to call it pride. But this is the kind of the rock I die on, is that the battle cry that I got, when I was in space, I was operated on without anesthetic several times. They took me and they modified me for the job. They either put implants or fucking whatever they did. There were times that I was taken and I was kind of zonked out, but still conscious. And they opened me up and were operating on me. And I was telepathically saying, what are you doing? Well, how can you do this to me? I was in so much great pain. How can you do this? And they were grays. They were tall, gray, like whitish gray ETs. And the answer I got was that you're not going to remember it anyway, so we're not going to waste it. We're not going to bother to put you out. Damn. Because you're not going to remember it. When we put you back, you're not going to remember anything. And then there were times when I was enslaved. I was abused. I was beaten. I was raped. And the same answer I got all the time was that you're not going to remember it. You won't remember this. Don't worry about it. It's never happened. So that's what I'm proud of. What I'm saying is I did remember, and I made a book about it. And so that dashes if that's their law, then it dashes that entire logical argument to pieces. One of us little stupid humans defeated their memory erasing process and did remember. And that's what I'm doing. That's why I'm talking about all this. That's basically the whole nutshell.
Fuck. Dude. Awesome.
Sorry, we're on fire tonight.
No,
man.
You are on fucking fire for sure, dude. First of all, thank you for your service. Secondly, it is pretty fucked up, man, to think about that all of those people out there are just disposable people. Now, again, to the NPC part of the conversation, because I actually find it dovetails quite nicely here, then those would be just vehicles. They'd just be uninhabited, filler people to fill this experience, and so they're not tapped into by folks like us. Now, something that'll really bake your noodle on this, man, that I'm thinking about as you're talking about this, I think just throw consciousness around like it's like toilet paper, just passing it out, then what we're experiencing right here could be a 20 and back slavery program. We could just be energy harvesting, a prison sentence out here in this life, experiencing this thing, and then we won't remember this and then trip back. And then they could do this ad infinitum. They could just pass our consciousness around to these different vehicles and we just experience whatever the hell they want. Right now, it's like working for corporate America and shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like we're a resource at that level. I'd like to think on a higher level, and I'm with you with like the chosen that you get to choose, kind of a thing, like choose your own adventure. And your adventure turned out to be this 20 and back shit. You just checked the wrong box. You checked the shitty version of it, not the cool one with lasers and shit. But, it seems like if this is possible at a level, then we're all consciousness. We all return to source, right? But if there is some sort of trippy technology here that's figured out how to harvest souls, like what the Archons talk about, like with the moon trap, with the soul traps and all that, then this terrifies the shit out of me. Honestly, the prison planet idea would be the worst hell I could think of because you can never get out of it. And so tell me that's not what's going on, Tony Rodrigues.
So, right. So the first book that I wrote is a linear account, and it's meant for somebody that has no idea what I'm talking about. So the Series Colony Cavalier book is literally, it's just the account. It's what happened to me when I was taken, and it's quick, and it's 20 years fit into, 480 pages. So that's not easy. So it's quick. It bounces. It goes really fast. And I get a lot of people like, man, I wish you would have talked more about this or that. The second book, so they opened doors in me during some of the early program that I was in, the Peru program, that should not have been open. There were things that I experienced that I should not have experienced, that people don't experience. And so I think that's what led to me remembering it. It's what led to me to have the ability to remember later on, I was exposed, like I was not somebody that was taken in the program and meant to be a scientist, right? I was not taken in the program and meant to be a soldier. I was taken in the program and they were like, see what you can do with him. And so I was trained to different things. And because of that, they didn't really keep track of where they got me from, and they kept training me for new techs, whatever. The second book talks more about what happened to me, like when I was out of body in Peru, in the tech. And we'll save time. I don't want to tell the whole, talk about it now because it'll kill a big chunk of the show. Okay. But basically, back to the soul trap thing, I don't believe it's real. I don't believe that there's a soul trap. I believe some people may get trapped, or I believe that some people may allow themselves to be trapped for a period of time. So like I said, your consciousness is actually, you're much bigger on the other side than you think you are. So, and when you talk about the NPC thing, so I don't believe in NPCs per se either. I believe that people have a different level of awareness, that your consciousness, I call it awareness. You can call it what you want, soul, chi, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Randy Kramer called it superfluid consciousness. That's what they call it, superfluid consciousness.
It's a cool name
Basically,
for a band.
Yeah, right on. We have different levels of it. Some people are some people are more aware than others. So everybody is aware. We're all made of the same stuff. Some people you have the awareness to live the life that you need to live for your growth, or some people aren't here to grow. They're here to help. Some people are here to grow. So you have the amount of awareness that's possible, that's necessary, and that's it. So some people are super aware because they're super achievers, like everything they do, they can master. Some people are very masterful at things. They're virtuosos. They have a great deal of awareness. But, and that's who is. So when you're talking about splitting the awareness to fuel a clone, they take somebody that's very aware, so they have more to power a clone. They take somebody that's not very aware, like you said, like an NPC. This is somebody that doesn't really care about anything. They don't really do it because it's less of the quantum fluid, superfluid quantum consciousness. It's less of that powering them. And that's what you would call like an NPC, because it's really not a ton of because consciousness is basically all one thing. Yeah. And it's source.
Right.
So I don't want to get super woo here or get into the religious end of it,
bro. You get your ass into woo. Go for it.
The Buddhists, that's exactly what they, the Buddhists don't want to kill a mosquito because it's conscious. It's you. Because literally it's you. Yeah. So, and then when you talk about like law of one, I'm a big fan of law of one, right? And the most powerful line to me in the law of one, the most powerful line is that the total number of minds in the universe is one. So there's only one mind. And because of it, it's dreaming about all these lives and all these experiences as a bug, as a butterfly, as a iguana, as a bird, as a person, as a rock, as a mountain, as a sky. This is all one. It's one mind that wants to experience all these things to grow, and in fact, to grow to be a better mind. And so that's what we really are. And it falls in line with what this phenomenon and these technologies that we're talking about, and new technologies that are coming out, like manifesting things, like going into like the Monroe Institute, going out of body and quantum hologram manipulation. These are all things that are all over TikTok now, and they're being released. The CIA document, the Gateway program. These are all things that Caesar said. The Isaac Benthoff's Stalking the Wild Pendulum is the science behind it. From the 70s, where they took quantum consciousness and how it all is tied into one. The science behind it is real. And it's all the same thing. It's all marrying together, and the ET phenomenon. And the ETs are just smarter than us, and they've been researching it openly for a long time. So they're locking us down here. They're closing a lid on the consciousness growing, and then using it for themselves, and then using it.
Yeah, that's the part right there. The part of like that we're limited, or there's a ceiling up there, because you went to the moon and shit, I guess we'll save the flat earth conversation for another episode. But, it's like there's this ceiling up there energetically, like the Van Allen radiation belts or something. And that's where all of our loosh is being harvested from. And this idea of like the moon being a soul trap that recycles you here, but maybe like consciousness signed up for that. Like you said, I agree with this. And I think that what you said earlier that made me feel better is when they said you have to tell us it's okay, because that's really what I stand on, is this autonomy. And that's what I really stand on. So it was nice hearing you say that. And also, thank you for relieving me and reminding me of what I needed to hear already, which is what I already knew. Unity consciousness, we're all one. It's all going to work out. It's one of those things that it's nice to hear it. Like you need to hear you're pretty every now and then. You know what I mean? I just need to be reminded.
From a different angle, not just your own angle. Yeah,
I appreciate it. So please, sir.
It's the nutshell of all religion. It's really is the nutshell. They just kind of they change the word around so people it's confusing.
Yeah, they make it controlling. Yeah, that's where it diverges. Yeah, but the unity consciousness, right on board, dude.
The soul trap thing is, so I get asked all the time. So, and I did a talk in the Secret Space Program conference in last May. And one of the questions, I got packed house, like it was a really good crowd and everything. And they were like, how do we stop our kids from being taken like you were? What do we do? How can you stop it? Can you stop them from taking your kid? Think about that, because you can't. When people talk about being taken by benevolent ETs, like last night I was taken by benevolent ETs and I was on their ship and they did this and that and blah, blah, blah. There's no benevolent. No, that's not benevolence. A benevolent ET encounter would be them knocking at your front door and saying, would you like to come with us? That's benevolent. Like that's respect. You know what I mean? Sovereignty.
Yeah.
They're coming into your bed in the middle of the night and taking your kid. It's literally our highest crime.
I'm with you. I don't trust
there is no benevolent contact at that point. But what I said is that, you can't. The thing you can do is teach your child to say no, to not consent to everything. Because kids are taught to consent. Yes. Shut up and consent. Eat your food or else. Consent. And you need to teach your children to have some sovereignty and to be able to say, no, I do not consent. Because that's a universal law, because that's a big thing, man. Huge. Like fear is consent. When you sit and you're afraid, and that's the animal kingdom's consent, is when they're afraid of the predator getting it, they're afraid, they get more afraid and they freeze and the predator eats it. Yeah. So if they're not afraid and they go, no, I don't think so, and run away, they tend to get away. So fear is consent. And you teach your children to not be afraid of these things. Like if they find themselves in that situation, we need to borrow you for 20 years, borrow your consciousness to help us out. Teach your child to say no in that point, even if he doesn't know what he's doing. Just say no, man.
Yeah, that's a good point, because they're definitely going to get jacked like you did, because all you did was mentally bully somebody who's psychic that asked you to do it, and then they were upset, and it happened to be Illuminati's kid. I mean, it's like, and then you get ganked up. But what's interesting about this is that the Greys and Reptilians and everybody's in on it, and there's just kind of like this collusion that's going on, which I would understand, from the point of our leaders, if you want to call them that. If they're not clones and reptilian shapeshifters or skinwalkers or just all of it jinn or something like that, then they'd be pretty terrified and be pretty willing to bend the knee if some terrifying, lizard turd walked up and said, hey, we're either going to eat you or we're going to eat a bunch of people, whoever's, so help us run this thing. And so it seems like just a big collusion type of a deal.
The world is changing. So we're on the verge of big changes, obviously. You don't got to be a genius to know that the world isn't what it used to be even a few years ago. We're in 2022. In 2019, the world was completely different than what it is, and it's going to keep changing at that rate. Like there's a giant war going on. They're talking about nuclear war for the first time since I was like 10 years old. Like the world is changing, and they're working up to disclosing. And we're at that point where they have to tell us the truth, because otherwise we're going to find out on our own. We're to the point now where, you can have the tools in your garage to build something that can discover this reality.
Yes.
Like people, the other thing, like I want to revisit, I got to ask you about the flat earth deal, man. Like, I hope you don't entertain that.
It's fun. Well, here's we can absolutely talk about it if you'd like. Again, back to kind of quantum physics, how we view this reality, how perception really shapes the environment around us. I truly do feel, after talking to a lot of people, after a lot of critical thinking, think that if you feel that the Earth is round and you get on a rocket or you're in a secret space program, then boom, you get that experience, and that's what happens, right? In more of a realm simulation type of a way. If you feel and resonate at the frequency that this Earth is flat, and there's like me, what I like is the idea of, I do not plant my flag. I have no idea, and I don't care. I think it's way more fun to talk about the ideas and possibilities. I don't need to stand on a ball or flat or it to be one or the other for me to be comfortable. So with all of that in mind, I think the expansive, infinite landmass type thing, that realm is the coolest to me. I don't think this dome idea, maybe an energetic one to kind of keep us monkeys at bay, but is accessible. But don't necessarily, again, think that this isn't just a huge realm or a big place, because honestly, we live in a place where duality exists, right? These two different ideas. Now, you can do this on small scales. You can Google, "Are eggs bad for me?" And you're going to get the number one doctor, won all the awards, did everything right, that says absolutely eggs are bad for you, do not do it. And then you're going to see another article or Google it the other way, number one doctor, same exact accreditation, that says absolutely not, eggs are great for you, eat them every day. On small scales, we don't really think about that stuff, but on large scales, maybe that's exactly how this place works. So I just think it's an option for people. So
are eggs bad or good? And the answer is yes.
The answer is, if you believe that, then absolutely. You embody that with energy.
So I would say this. So I'm not a flat earth person, and I feel that it's a dissipation, because they saw people like me coming forward. They saw the secret space program and the reality of ETs starting to really, like, they had their hands on it. And it got so much pressure that it started to let out people with witnesses. And now we have YouTube. Like there were still thousands and thousands of people that had experience with ETs, but they didn't have YouTube to go on and tell everybody about it back in the 80s or in the 60s or in the 50s. It's been going on all along. So now they do, and they saw it coming. So they returned to the flat earth was the flat earth was to stop people from exploring to the new worlds, because they had silver mines in South America. They were getting silver and getting rich off of it. So they were like, "Oh, the world's flat. Don't sail out there and discover all the rubies in Greenland," because they were pocketing it for themselves. So they kept everybody in a fence. It was just a rumor. So what I'm saying is they did that again, and they're dissipating the information. So the same flat earth people, to me, know that something's wrong. They know that the official narrative that we've been given is wrong. Right. Everybody kind of knows it to a tinge, except for some people that are lining up to do whatever. I caught myself.
You can say it if you'd like. You're welcome to.
I caught myself. No, I don't want to insult anybody. Really. So people are very smart on both sides of the coin. So what I'm saying is, like, flat earth people are not, I do say it publicly sometimes that I feel it's an IQ test, but it's just it's a knowledge base of it. So, but I think that people that are flat earth people, there's some legitimately, they know something's wrong, and they're entertaining something new to try to solve the problem. And so and the flat earth videos are amazing. Yeah. At the way that they sell it. So they're spending big money on this. These aren't amateurs that are selling you this stuff. They leave out a few key details, but this is like high tech psycho technology. This is like these guys are high tech. These videos are not just a guy putting it together with a camera. These are very high tech, very mind control-ish videos, very effective. Because I watched some and I went, whoa. But here's the deal. Because I remembered living in space and going out among the stars, I was always into astronomy. I always had my own telescope. I've put eyes on, from my backyard, you can see Saturn, you can see the moons, the rings, you can see Jupiter. And I've been to Australia, where all the stars are upside down. And we have Zoom. So I talk to people regularly in Europe and Australia and Asia and in California, and the sun comes up and down at different times. And we all experience this, whether we believe it or not. The sun and the stars still are the same. And there's something called parallax. So it's not a screen in the sky, because two telescopes, one in California and one in Michigan, on the same object, the same way that we judge distance with our two eyes, can judge the distance of separate objects in the cosmos. So we can look at the moon and know how far away it is. And you don't need to be a scientist. Like, you can just Google this and do it yourself. You need $300 of a telescope and you can do all this. So people that are sold to the flat earth thing are completely ignorant of astronomy. That's how I feel. And I always tell people, like, when they get heated, because they immediately get defensive and heated, I'm like, look, don't just go join an astronomy club. I'm telling you, if you have a girlfriend, it's the best date. If you go to the local astronomy, if you live in the city, like college has an astronomy department, they'll have an astronomy night, like a public night. It's the best date you'll ever take your girlfriend to you. It's so romantic. And you go there and you can look at star clusters and nebula, and all that stuff is out there.
Yeah.
The space is real. It's up there. And with the knowledge of it, you can actually unpack that we're on a sphere. So that's my 2 cents. I get what you're saying about the thing, but when I look through a telescope and believe what I'm looking at, and then you walk up behind me and look at it, you see the same exact thing. And I've been in astronomy. Like, I was an amateur at the University of Hawaii, and I was involved in some telescope projects. You know what I mean? Like and I've looked through some really big telescopes, and astronomy dashes flat earth to pieces. And so I would say, you know what I mean? If you're searching for the truth, don't take my word for it, but let your search be through the joyous and wonderful thing, subject of astronomy. It's beautiful to go look through things in the telescope and get your head around that. And, it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt to like I said, it's an absolutely romantic date. It's a great date to join a star club.
Oh, it's we live out here in the country, man. We have a barn. I built a huge porch on the back of it, uncovered, just so that we could go out in the middle of the field and like look up at stars and shit. It's awesome, man. So really the thing about it is like, to exactly what you said about the people who were deterred from it being going out and exploring because of the silver, they were told that it was flat. I think an argument could be made that it's really more of an expansive realm, like I said, and that the physics could still work that way, appear that way, and that they tell you it's a 3D ball, but we don't have the technology to go anywhere because of the same reasons, because there's extra land out here. There's silver mines out there, and we can't let the monkeys run around.
I did a little experiment. So, because like I said, some people are like passionate, and it immediately gets cool. It immediately gets angry. And so I've always, like, even in if you listen to my story that I'm telling people, it's easy to say, I've had people that are skeptical, right? And I'm always like, man, I'd love to have you come on the show, and I'd love to have a skeptic come on the show and kind of just cross-examine me, but in a friendly way. Yeah. But most skeptics are like, they go immediately to, you should get beat up. I'm going to beat you up. You're full of crap.
Stupid.
Right. And so the flat earth debate kind of goes in that realm. But here's one thing another flat earth thing that I did, because after witnessing a heated debate, I was asked by a friend, like, how can we prove this? And you can use Priceline. You can use a map of the world, Google Earth, and you can use Priceline, because the flat earth map doesn't work with the flight times. So on a flat earth map, to fly from Argentina, for instance, to Mauritius, or what is that island, like Rodrigues Island, and then it's like Madagascar, for instance. Okay. To fly that distance on the flat earth map is very long. But when you look on Priceline, you can see the flight is only, 6 hours. Right. So because the world is a globe, because the flights are different. I've got a picture that I did. I actually did that and set it. So like flat earth, you shouldn't be able to fly from Japan to California, for instance, or wherever it is. You can't fly the other side. But in fact, there are flights every day that are going right there. So it is a globe, and there are flights going all over it right now, and you can buy tickets. You can literally go right now and buy tickets. And if it's a 4-hour flight, but on the flat earth map, they say that it's round, but on the map, it still doesn't work out. When you look at when you measure the flight times, and then you go on the line and look at your flight tickets, that there are people on the flight as we speak with the clock that, what I'm saying, like the times don't work out. It just doesn't work. It supports the globe theory.
Here's what I love about this, because I could have somebody on, David Weiss, for instance, and he would tell you that because of Flight Pass, that's one of the reasons he became such a diehard flat earther. And here's what I'm smiling about, by the way, is I got this shit-eating grin on my face because it's further kind of reinforcing this is eggs, man. The flight paths for flat earth versus round earth, from your perception, eggs are great, and those don't make sense. From his perception, eggs are bad, and those do make sense, and this other thing doesn't make sense from the same mechanism. See what I mean? Isn't this fascinating? Like, you can really look at data that's out there, that's measurable, and get two completely different ideas off of it. Now, what I like is that you went to fucking space, dude. I think that's awesome. Like, I think it's great. It, again, doesn't need to be real for everyone for it to have been real for you. I know that's a really trippy idea, and I'm still kind of working on it, but that's kind of where I've been, just simply looking at this is true over here, okay, and this is true over here, but they're completely diametrically opposed. It's interesting to me. It's just an observation I'm playing with. Again, I don't plant my flag. So I tell you what, we normally wrap these things up at about this time, but I definitely want to hear about your moon story, and then I'm going to invite you back on very, very soon for us to do another one of these, because you've just been badass. This is a banger. Absolute banger, Tony Rodrigues.
Thanks.
So tell us about the moon, man. I want to know what the moon's like, so tell us about it.
Well, I went to the back of the moon on several occasions, and there were underground, the hangar bays are underground. There was a base, there was a trapezoid. Niera Isley is somebody who also experienced the same kind of program that I did. And she went right around the same timeline to a trapezoid-shaped base on the back of the moon. And it was new. Excuse me?
Is it hollow, like Alex Coyer's work? Yeah, was it brought here?
Right. So there were deeper levels to it. Like there were volcanic caverns that went down to deeper levels. Like the base keeps going down into it. So the actual lower part of the moon was highly classified and is the realm of ETs. No humans are allowed. So there's a jurisdiction there of when you go deep into the moon. So they really don't know. Like even the military that was in the base didn't know, or if they did, it was it's classified. And because there are ETs down there, like it's a really high. There was one mission where we went and it's in the book, it's the Chicago chapter in the book, but there was a mission we went there and we volunteered. It was a high probability of, being killed. And so we volunteered for it. And I was a slave. So I volunteered because A, I hated my life. I was suicidal. And B, there was the opportunity for promotion. And so I did. And I volunteered. We went there. We went to a lower part of the moon that was highly classified, that very few people, and they had access. What it was, they had their own portal, like imagine like a Star Trek transporter room, but it was a portal. And they said that it took a great amount of power. And that's why we had to go to the moon, and they didn't have one on Ceres because the Ceres colony kind of had power problems. They had free energy, but they were trading with ETs, the equipment for free energy, and to run it, like they had built so much infrastructure that they couldn't really drain the power to make their own portal system. Anyhow, we went to the moon, and the inner of the moon, there's a power source there that's like unlimited, like very powerful. Like a high amount of power output. Like the moon is one of the highest tech things in our solar system, but in terms of power output. And so we went there, and they had a room, and then we portaled down to the Earth, and then did our mission and portaled back. And but that was in a lower level of the moon. But I didn't really go. I didn't have access to the information. Like the map of the moon that they had. I was told to go here, follow, eyes down. Eyes on your shoes and go, and follow us. And you go down hall, and it's not very high tech looking. It's like going through a cheesy panel walled apartment building, like a crappy building on the inside. It's not
They didn't
sexy.
even make it look cool and futuristic with like laser lights and shit.
No, well, so when I got down to that part, when we actually got to the part where that room was, it was made out of stone. The walls were everything. There were two big black like slabs that the portal appeared on that would shield from radiation, but they said that they had a power output that came in from elsewhere that created that. And behind that, there was a wall that could turn. We were standing in a room. There's guys with a flat, rounded, like a computer, like a big desk that was their computer that they worked on, like two guys that were techs. And they said, okay, we're powering up, hang on a minute. And they were programming it in. And they said, okay, look there. And you go up these steps, and the wall came clear, and you could see the room. There was like a stage, and some steps going up to it, and then you walked on a catwalk into the portal. Like you didn't stand there and beam out; you had to walk into the portal,
Like a Stargate.
And, yeah, it was a ball, and then it would look like
Really?
a green light. It looked like a ball, like a beach ball sized green light. And when you got close to it, as soon as I got up to about 3 feet away from it, I could see the destination. Like I could see the door handle. I appeared in a staircase in a building, in a high rise building, was like in the stairwell.
Yeah.
And that's where I appeared. But right when I got up close to it, I could see the door handle of the door that went out on. Oh, and then boom, I was there. And disoriented. I went, whoa, and then there's the door handle, and it was like I was immediately there, like I portaled to it. That was there where they could see into the future, and they saw that there was a probability that I was going to remember, I was going to retain my memories, and so they put me through another round of trauma-based mind control, like programming, so that I would not remember. And they were plugging me into a chronovisor. And they had to get it's not a definite future. It's like probable futures.
Right.
And they had to get it down under a percentage in order to put me back. And they took me to a corner office for another round of programming. And from there, I would look out the window and I could see the surface of the moon. It was nighttime. They said the sun was going to come up in 18 hours or something like that, that the sun did come around on the backside. But, it was on its own weird. He told me the schedule. It didn't make sense to me. But it was dark, and there were mountains in the background. Like we were in a basin of a crater, and you could see the mountains around the background.
Damn.
But
What's
it was not enjoyable.
What's up with the gravity? Is it like the same, or do they alter? Is it like lighter or whatever, or did they alter it in the base?
So there's some guys right now. I don't know if I want to say the name of the company. But they have successfully manipulated gravity in a laboratory environment. Now they're in New Jersey, and by saying that, I mean that they've done it like 1/10,000th of a gram of weight that they've moved. They have a machine that can read gravity. Like a weight, like a scale, and then they have a Faraday room, and they put it in. They bombard it with, they've been able to manipulate gravity with. High powered electromagnetic distortion, whatever, but it manipulates gravity. So I'm working with them because I saw the innards of the artificial gravity plate, the grav plating that we had artificial. So the moon, the base had artificial gravity, was about 1G. There are ETs so the bigger ETs are from smaller worlds, so they grow taller because they're in less gravity, and the shorter ETs are from bigger worlds that has more gravity. So they're much stronger, but they're stockier. They're like, they're thicker and they're short. So because they're from a planet with bigger gravity. So they had the ability, the flooring that they install have beams of whatever it is, electromagnetics or whatever it is that of artificial gravity. And certain ETs can wear a device on them, like a piece of a bracelet or a medallion that lets the floor know what their gravity is, and it follows them where they go. So we could be standing in the same room, and I would be at my natural gravity, and an ET that has lesser gravity was like they were at home, and we could too. And this is how it worked on the ships, and how it worked on Sirius, because Sirius is a very small dwarf planet, had microgravity, and there were places where they shut the gravity off, like they run the flooring around, and they have artwork. They shoot, it's imagine like a big fish tank, and then they shoot water into it, and it's floating there, and then they turn the gravity on, and it falls, and then they shoot balls of fire, and they shoot things in. They have art.
Awesome.
They had artwork all over like that on Ceres that was like that in low gravity, microgravity areas. I did work in the mines one day, and that they have the mining system was based on like ultrasonics with a laser that aimed it, and it would break apart the inside of the tunnel, the rock. It would break it apart, and the material was in microgravity. They'd go in with vacuums and vacuum it out, and the big stuff they would clear it out, and then they would install the floor in farther, and you'd move the whole operation up, and they would keep tunneling, and that's how they did that. But it was very dusty in the microgravity, like it filled up with dust, so they vacuumed it clear. Is how they did that. And they had like big system. They put zip walls of plastic, like thick plastic, up around and then they would mine it out, and that would hold the dust. They'd vacuum all that air out and filter it, and then after it settled, then they would install the gravity plating farther, and then do it again. And that's how they were mining there, to look for water and to make new places to build infrastructure. There was, real estate was at a premium there.
Damn. Yeah, and you would think that they would have like a vacuum that was basically like a portal to another dimension or something. Because if you're doing that much clearing underground on the moon, there's only so much place to take that material, and you can't just pile it up on a crater up there. People will notice it, right? And so, did they just zip it out somewhere?
Well, they had the ability to turn it into something else.
Oh,
like they had the ability to affect things on them. And like we had replicator technology, like the food was replicated. Imagine a microwave where you imagine a microwave with a bunch of microwave quality, like cups, like those little bowls, like a little instant bowl, an empty bowl with holes in the lid. You put the lid on it and you put it inside the microwave, and you had one of 6 buttons. You put the button, and 5 minutes later, the bowl had food in it that was printed on a molecular level inside, and it was piping hot. So that's how that was the food we had on the ship. That's how that worked.
Yeah, I've heard of that. That's fascinating, dude. Absolutely incredible, man. I love this. I'm going to give you the last word on this, brother, but yeah, we're going to cap it here only because I got another commitment, man. This is a hard out today.
Sure.
Okay.
No worries.
But, Tony, dude, you're a badass. We will absolutely have you back. But my friend, just tell everybody where they can find you. Of course, I'm going to be linking all the ways to find you down in the show notes. And like I said, we have got to do this again. There are way too many cool things to talk about. You're way too awesome. So thank you again, brother.
Well, I have a Patreon show, Talks with Tony, on Patreon. You can link to it from my website. Everything's on my website, TonyRodrigues.com. And it's, so the S on the end, everybody puts the Z, but it's Tony Rodrigues with an S on the end.com. And there's a link to my book. There's a little bio. There's a link to free interviews that I did originally. And there's a memory course that I made, which is basically those exercises I talked about to help people expand fragmented memory. It works on anything. You don't have to be alien abducted. It works on long-term memory. If there's things but you can't remember, that exercise works. I do consultations. You can contact me through my email. And then the book. And I'm working on the second book, and I'm consulting a couple guys who are writing fiction books based on my book.
Awesome.
2. And there's a movie script that's out there. It's like a love story based on my account that I signed off the rights to, because I think that'd be cool for that. And that's being pitched. I don't think it's in the works yet, but it is being pitched. So, I've been at it a while, and then I'm going to Orlando to the Galactic Spiritual Informers Conference. And I'm speaking with some really heavy hitters. Alex Collier, it's his last time speaking publicly. Elena Delon, it's her first time speaking. Michael Salla will be there. Laura Eisenhower will be there. There's Brad Olson. There's going to be there's like some heavy hitters. I'm honored to be a part of that conference. I'm leaving next week for that. It's the weekend after this. So
awesome,
good things are going on, man. They're going to disclose. We're going to get the definite on this within our lifetime.
I don't want them to disclose. That's one of the questions I actually have. Is disclosure important to you? And that's one of the things. I think they're all full of shit, and I don't believe any or trust what they're going to tell us anyway. But
so we're going to need to know.
Cool.
We're going to need to know that there's intelligent life, and disclosure to me is this: it's not us flying around out there. It's access to their database. The technology, the medical technology alone. I don't know about you, but I've lost loved ones that should still be alive. We shouldn't be living the short lives that we are. We can live much longer than we do. The technology is out there. They're using it right now. And there are many things that would make our life easier. We are living a very mundane existence where we shouldn't be, because we paid for these people to go and discover this stuff, and it's locked behind black. I should be able to go visit people elsewhere in the world very quickly.
Yeah.
And so should you.
Yeah.
This should have happened.
We should have done it here. That's what I was just thinking. Yeah. You just teleport over.
And I could be going home in the same 15 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like this
I agree with you.
So we need disclosure. We have, these things are real. The world, you know what I mean? Like there's a reality here that we've had locked away from us. And so disclosure is the first step to that. The knowledge of these programs is the first step to disclosure. And that's why it's important to tell people about my account and other people. I'm not the only one. And that's the other thing. I'm not the only one. It happens a lot. So I think that, we're going to learn about life in the cosmos, and that's going to happen super quick. And a lot of things are just going to fall to the wayside. The dust will settle, and there's going to be so much information that it's going to happen so rapidly that people won't be able to worry about, point the finger at who's doing what. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're gonna let go of a lot of trivial stuff that we, we're wasting our time on after a disclosure. Like, people are gonna have to stop chasing the Gucci stuff and start chasing some knowledge, and that's what's gonna happen.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, thank you for coming on it and popping our Secret Space cherry here. You are our first Secret Space program guest on, and you crushed, man. So you're absolutely welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Definitely have so much more to talk about, dude. So let's do it again, brother. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Massive shout out to Tony Rodrigues for coming by and hanging out with us. Thank you so much, Tony. This was a killer conversation. We have so much more to talk about as it is with these things, and so we will definitely be inviting you back on in the near future here. So guys, check out in the meantime, before all that happens, down in the show notes, Tony Rodrigues' website, as well as his book, Cirrus Colony Cavalier. All of it's located down there. While you're down there checking that out, you might as well take a gander at our resource links as well. We have Food Forest Abundance, Get Your Freedom from Fear on, OPUS, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support. If you, yes, you would like to start your own podcast, there is a link down there in the description titled Start Your Own Podcast. We partnered with Red Circle, and that will get you going for sure. Also, if you really want to step your game up in life in general, overall, break the stagnancy, check the link down there, the Manifestors Guide. He's got a special scholarship offer just for you, the listener of this show. At checkout, type Expanding Reality, all caps, no spaces, and he sweetens the deal on top of that. Could not recommend this more, guys. Okay, so go out into this incredibly mysterious place, guys. You know, before you get scooped up, you may have been secret space programmed and not even know it, which is crazy. Tony's got a resource for that if you feel that you have. And y'all just go out into this awesome place and just be good to one another. Like, pick up a piece of litter, let's say, and maybe buy somebody in line a coffee or a meal or something like that around you, something like that. Let's say for sure, get out of the left-hand lane, because that's a huge, like, that should be step one. I should have just said that right after littering, because littering's important. Pick that shit up, but also get out of the left-hand lane. You got somebody behind you wanting to pass. And of course, guys, above all and anything else, go out into this incredibly beautiful, mysterious place, whatever the hell this thing is, and y'all just be good to one another. That's it. That's the basic, that's it. Just be good to one another. Thank y'all so much for watching, listening, engaging, and just being the coolest sons of bitches ever. We'll see you next time.